Hello and welcome to our Okie Dokie Life. I've been craving some apple juice. One of my favorites that we found when I bought a juicer just on the whim one day was apple juice, and I love apple juice, so I decided that we needed to buy some apples whenever we made our last trip to the store. I had an idea. I was curious if I could juice the apples and then freeze dry them and kind of make a instant apple juice out of the powder that comes from the freeze dry. So we're going to try that today and see if it works. So we're going to start out just by, I got a whole 5 pounds, I think, of Red Delicious apples. Did a little bit of research before we purchased them, and it seems like people tend to like these for apple juice. So we're going to cut these up. I've already washed them. It's always a good idea to wash them. So I'm going to cut them up. You cut the cores out. Join me real quick while we cut some of these up. I'm just going to cut them big enough to fit in the hole, but also cutting the core out. And I'm going to try not to cut my fingers off. I'm a little clumsy at times, so it's best that I take this slow and be careful. I'm a big fan of the pulp and the mother in this apple juice, so I'm leaving the skins on and everything. We're just gonna go real simple here. I'm sure there are some recipes out there to add a couple of things to it to just create more of a different flavor. The last time we made it, all I did was apples, and it was probably the best apple juice I've ever had, so I had no drive to change from that. Simple is usually best, so we're just going to cut all these up. If I could keep them on the cutting board, that'd be great. By the way, it's just me drinking this because Lacey doesn't like it. So I don't really care if it touches the table a little bit. Some people might. You might want to go rewash it if it does, but it doesn't bother me at all. So. Okay, we just finished up cutting up all the apples. I wasn't super careful with whether I left a lot of meat around the core. Most of the time, we're either going to feed this to the pigs, or Lacey likes to make apple cider vinegar out of it. I imagine that's probably the direction we're going to go with this, because I get all that pulp and she just makes it. So I'm going to set these aside for Lacey to make later on. So I've got my whole bowl full of apples here. So now I need to go get my juicer. Boom. Anyways, this is a Mueller, I believe that's how it's pronounced, apple juicer. This is kind of the one that came up with some decent reviews. I bought it. So far, we haven't used it a whole lot, but so far I've been fairly happy with it. If it's still available, I'll put a link to it in the description. Pretty simple process. All you do is, it's got a nice little plunger here to make sure you're pushing the fruit or whatever you're juicing down into it. And then it's got a nice little catch tray here for all the junk that it pushes out. And then all the juice comes out on this side. It gets kind of loud, so we'll probably put some catchy music on it for you. Apples, since they have a little bit more meat to them, I tend to run it on 2. It has 2 speeds. The one's just for the softer stuff. So I'm going to run it, and we'll see how this goes. just because it's so noisy, I didn't want to try to talk over it. As I'm using it, I'm kind of keeping the plunger ready to push in it because it's kind of violent in there and the apples like to hop out. So I try to not have to go catching the apple after I stick it in there. So that's why I'm kind of, even though I'm not really having to plunge it much, I'm keeping the plunger near just to keep the fruit in. So. Just letting it kind of use that centrifugal force to push the rest of the juice that it can out of it while it's, I don't have any more apples to put through it, so. Well, I'm gonna be honest. I was really hoping for a little bit more than 5 cups of apple juice out of 5-pound bag of apples. But I'll take what I can get. I really like the apple juice. Might be something for my next experiment with it. I wait till they're a little bit more in season, a little bit cheaper, and wasting it there. And then worry about that a little bit more. I'm still going to freeze dry it. I really want to know if that works or not. So the next step is I'm gonna get some of my freeze dry trays out. We're gonna start getting this prepped to freeze dry. Well, hopefully we'll get at least, we may only get 1 tray out of this, but if so, we've got other stuff to put in. So that is all the discard from what came from the apples. This stuff the pigs will love it. It'll go fine in the apple cider vinegar. It'll make it real potent. So it's going to be set aside with the cores for Lacey to work on later. So while we were preparing for getting the freeze dryer stuff out, me and Lacey were talking about it. The grind, what was kind of just produced byproduct from making the apple juice, we decided we're probably going to feed to the pigs, even though we could put it in the apple cider vinegar mix. It's less that we have to strain out later, and the pigs will love it. So we're just going to go that route. As I stated earlier, I like all the pulp in the juice. It just makes it taste a little bit better to me. So I'm not going to strain it. If you don't like that and you just want pure apple juice, strain it, put it through cheesecloth, do whatever you need to get all those granules out of it. But since I like it that way, I'm going to go ahead and just pour it straight into the tray, and we're going to hope for the best on this. I am pretty confident that we're going to get it maybe 2 trays. I was wrong. I'm going to only fill the tray about half full just because I can't carry anything any fuller than that without making a huge mess, and I'm already going to make a little bit of a mess. That's why I have a towel here. So Lacey's going to get me another tray. I'm going to slide this one forward just so it's a little closer to the freeze dryer. And here's my magical tray number 2. And we're just going to pour it in there. It's nothing special about this. Guess I should have evened those out a little bit more, and I can do so in just 1 second. That's about all I'm getting out of there. Okay, next up we're going to at least get these ready for the freeze dryer. I'm going to go and get them in there. I think since we don't like to waste a freeze dryer run, I'm going to get these in there, kind of get them ready, and we're going to decide on the next one what we're going to put in there with it. We're either going to do milk or we have some veggies that we'd like to freeze dry. So we have the Harvest Right freeze dryer. I believe it's the medium, and so I'm going to use it. We talked about it, and we decided that we're probably just going to do milk. Since I'm not having to pour that there, I'm going to cheat a little. I'm messy, and it's hard for me to carry liquids in a tray like this, so I'm going to actually get this thing started, kind of get it where it's doing its thing. I'm going to get the tray about halfway in there, and then start pouring the milk into the tray. That way I don't have to actually travel with the tray. This one, We've had it for about a year and you can't hardly mess it up. So all I have to do is turn it on in the back. It's got a little switch. It's gonna maybe get a little bit louder. I don't know how my mic's gonna handle this. You give it a couple seconds, it starts right up. Once it starts, you hit the start button. And it's going to take it about 15 minutes to actually cool down enough to be ready to start the process. I'm going to go ahead and open up the chamber and try to get the apple juice over to it. So, fingers crossed, we make as little of a mess as possible. Woo! Somebody doesn't have their fingers crossed. Okay. Alrighty. That was the hard part. So now I'm going to get the tray a little bit more than halfway in there. We just have some store-bought milk that we're not going to use in time to meet this deadline. So we're just going to freeze dry it. That way we're not wasting it. If we had missed the deadline and it had gone bad, again, that's why one of the luxuries of having pigs. Whoop, I made a bigger mess with the milk. And I'm probably covering it. You couldn't see it, but so it didn't happen, right? All right, I got that one about to the max that I'm comfortable with it being. So we're just gonna slide it on in there. Get the next tray ready. I almost overfilled that one. I got carried away. We'll see how it goes. I'll be very careful pushing that into the bay. All right, success. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and shut the door. I have to let it wait its 15 minutes to actually cool off to the point of being ready to start the process. So we will return as soon as that's ready. 15 minutes has passed. It's getting cold in there, showing 60 degrees, so it's obviously not cold enough to do anything yet. It's not gonna freeze anything at this point. But it's ready to go into the next phase. It basically says on there that it's ready, just close the drain and hit continue. So again, it's pretty hard to mess up the process here. I've already closed the drain before the video. It's just a little switch behind the freezer. Now it's switched over to freezing, so it's just going to get colder and colder until it gets to the temperature that it has predefined for its actual freezing temperature, and then it'll vacuum the chamber out and just start the drying process. At this point, all we have to do is wait. It usually takes about 24 hours. So we'll see you after it's done and see how it goes. Welcome back. So we're actually probably about 30 hours in. It didn't take 30 hours for it to actually dehydrate this. I just got busy and I didn't have a chance to actually pull it out faster than that. So I let it run all the way through. Doesn't really hurt to let it do that. So we got some interesting results. I wasn't sure what this is going to do, and I'm not even sure that we're going to be able to get this out of the tray. It looks kind of like you burnt something to a pan. We will find out how that goes. The milk turned out just like expected. We've done milk before. It's pretty easy. It just comes out as like a sheet of ready to crumble material. This one did do something weird. It kind of mushroomed up at the top. I have no idea why it did that, but I just thought it was interesting. So to begin with, I'm going to start trying to scrape this out of here. I'm going to use a nice little metal spatula, and I'm going to figure out if we can even get this out of the pan. So bear with me, and let's all hope. I'm going to move those away because it's kind of spreading. Okay, that was coming out a lot easier than I was thinking it was going to. It still is more work than the milk will be, or the eggs have been in the past also. Requires a little bit of elbow grease. So I got this one kind of scraped up. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one, and then we'll get it into the blender just to make sure it is a nice fine powder. Okay, so I got them both done. This pan was a lot harder to scrape, had a little bit more of a sticky consistency. I'm not sure what that's about, and I'm not sure that it's going to actually powder and age very well either, because it almost has a moisture to it. But we'll find out. I probably won't let it last that long if it tastes any good at all anyways. So I'm going to get the blender set up so we can kind of puree it enough that it's an actual powder that you could put in just kind of like you're mixing something. So give me just 1 second. For us, this little Ninja blender has been the perfect tool for doing this. Every item that we have to powderize, we have ran through this, and it's always done a really good job for us. So I've got this nice big funnel here, just so I make less of a mess. And I'm going to just dump it in there. We're going to run it for a little bit, and I'm going to pull it out. Let's clean it up since I'm going to do milk next. Okay, so just going to dump it in there. Oop. I'm going to dump half of it on the floor, because that's what I do. All right, we have it in there. We're going to puree it for just a little bit and get it ready. So normally after powderizing it, I would just dump it right into a Mylar bag and we'll get it ready for sealing and put a desiccant patch in it. I'm not sure that I'm actually going to go through that and waste the bag for this test. So I'm just going to dump it into the bowl. We're going to test it before we do any kind of storage of the apple juice. Fail. So I guess there's a reason you don't see this powderized or in an instant apple juice very often, or I'm doing something wrong. Maybe something we have to figure out at another time. It seems like there's so much sugar content in the juice that it may have crystallized the powder and almost made it more equivalent to a brown sugar. It's not very powdery. It just clumps together, and so I'm still going to try to figure out how to reconstitute it and make it into a drink that's worth drinking, but I don't know that it's going to turn into a long-term solution for having apple juice on hand at all times. So I'm going to go clean all the dishes, and then we'll come back and go ahead and powderize the milk and put it in a Mylar bag. Okay, we're back from washing them. I'm letting it air dry a little bit before I actually do the milk. We were trying to determine how to reconstitute this, and we decided that we would probably start with trying how we do our powdered milk usually, which is about 1/3 of a cup of powder and 7/8 cup of water to equal us to the 1 cup of liquid. It's going to be a guesstimate because this is pretty hard to measure out. It's so sticky. As we were trying to measure this out, we ended up testing a little bit of just the product that came out. And as a snack alone, it's really good. It resembles like a fruit leather, but not quite. I'm not sure exactly how to describe it. It'd be something that would taste really good across as a crumble on a cake or any kind of baked goods. I'm not sure that I will do this again. It was a pretty tough cleanup, and it's just not turning out like I was hoping it would. But I do have my 7/8 cup of water. I've got my roughly 1 cup of the powder, if you want to call it that. Sorry, 1/3 cups of powder, if you want to call it that. I'm going to see if we can reconstitute it and just make a little bit of apple juice here. It does seem to be dissolving pretty well into the water. Kind of having to break it up a little bit here before I even start trying to stir it. Let it start absorbing. It's quickly turning into an apple juice color. But it compacted so tightly, it's hard for it to actually get the water to all the powder and break it all apart. So let's let it reconstitute here a little bit. Okay, it took quite a bit of stirring and breaking it up and mixing and everything. It looks to be pretty much broken down. Looks a lot like a really, really dark apple juice. We may have to kind of add a little bit more water to it. It looks a little darker than I was expecting it to do. But I'm going to pour a little in this cup and we're going to taste test it real quick. All right, here we go. It tastes pretty good. Tastes just like the apple juice as I was expecting it to taste right out of the juicer. I'm actually fairly happy with the way that turned out. Might be a little heavy, but it didn't really bother me, so I could probably put just a little bit more water in there though. As far as the mixing, the ratio probably needs a little bit of work. Even though I liked it fairly well, it's a little strong. I'm not sure how we're gonna handle the rest of it. We may just snack on it. We like the flavor of the powder enough to, we may just break off pieces here and there and snack on them, or may continue turning it into juice. Probably not going to long-term seal this. I don't think it'll last that long. It's too sugary. There's too much. It almost feels like there's actual moisture in there, even though it was as dry as it can be. So I don't know how it would store. So all in all, wasn't a complete failure. Didn't turn out exactly like I wanted it to, but now we know what it does. Probably not the most preferred way to store apples for long-term use. Next up, we're gonna go ahead and powder up the milk and get it in a bag and actually permanently seal it. All right, we got it all cleaned up and it's dry now. You have to make sure it's really dry, because if you don't, it's going to start introducing moisture into the milk prematurely. And that's kind of defeating the purpose of what we're trying to do here. Milk is a little bit easier than the apple juice. You just kind of pre-break it up a little bit in the tray just to make it easier to work with. It just kind of, it's super flaky, it's powderized, and then you just start working it into the blender. Again, I'm using the big funnel. It's a lot easier to work with. So it looks like I can only fit one tray at a time into the blender. So I'm going to go ahead and run this batch real quick. We'll put it into the Mylar bag and get the other one going. Okay, this one is powderized. We just use these Harvest Right brand Mylar bags. We've had really good luck with them. I don't think we've tried too many other brands, but we know these are good, so we just kind of stick with them. When it comes to storing your food for a long time, you want to make sure you have a good quality bag. We like to use the funnel to help us get the product into the bag. And it just dumps in there pretty easily. All right. Okay, and now we're going to get ready to do this next tray. Okay, on the tray that had the little mushroom cloud of milk powder there, once I got to breaking into it, I realized it was still pretty damp inside. So I guess we're going to have to run it through the freeze dryer just a little bit longer. I may go ahead and break this into 2 trays and run them simultaneously just to let it spread out a little bit more. This was the tray that I got pretty full, so I guess that's my fault. I should have probably balanced those trays up just a little bit better. So it's going to go back into the freeze dryer. We'll package it up whenever it's actually done. We're not going to package it up just like this because it's got too much moisture in it and it'll just go bad just like it would if you had milk right out of the jug. Okay, since we're having to re-freeze dry the one tray to get it as dry as we possibly can, we decided to go ahead and just seal this bag. Even though it's not full like we normally try to fill them up to, that way we're getting the most out of the bags. We're just going to go ahead and process it this way to get it stored. We'll just use another bag whenever we actually get the other part done. We have a little bit more milk, so we could actually freeze dry a couple more trays. So first thing, we put it in the bag already. We're going to put a desiccant pouch in the bag. These pouches that we use are rechargeable. After use, you're supposed to be able to put them in the oven and bake them at a really low temperature for a little while and get them back to ready to dry out your products. We haven't actually ever recharged one of these yet. We'll have to see how that goes sometime. To seal this, we use this Harvest Right Impulse Sealer. For Mylar bags, you have to make sure that the dial is turned to 7, or I like to go just a little bit higher just to make sure we get that good seal on the bag. I try to level the bag out as much as I can. I try to get as close to the top as possible. There is a tearaway strip on it built in, so I try to get above that for sure. You get it leveled, you can kind of hold it down a little bit. You press it until the light clicks off. And there it goes. Kind of holds it to the base there. So now it's got a good seal on it. You can't open the bag. That desiccant pouch that's in there is going to make sure to keep any moisture that somehow made it in the transfer from the freeze dryer to where we bagged it. It's going to help make sure that gets out of there. It'll actually end up kind of flattening the bag out and almost, I don't know that it sucks the air out, but it'll make it a little bit more airtight. So this one's ready. All we have to do is label it and then we'll put it in storage. Thank you guys for joining us on this adventure. I was really hoping some of it would have turned out better than it did. I just knew I had created the next new invention with the apple juice, the freeze-dried apple juice. I don't know that it's going to take off like I was hoping. The milk, we'll get that other one done, and we'll see you next time. So to seal the bag, we have a Harvest Right chopper thing. You can kind of hold it there to kind of get everything straight. And then you press it until the light clicks off. First, you make sure it's plugged in. So to seal it, we use this Harvest Right. I can see the word. I can't remember the word.